الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله الناصح الأمين. اللهم صل على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. ثم أما بعد، حدثني جماعة من الشيوخ كل بإسناد إلى سفيان بن عيينة عن عمرو بن دينار عن أبي قابوس مولى عبد الله بن عمرو عن عبد الله بن عمرو بن عاص رضي الله تعالى عنهما أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: الراحمون يرحمهم الرحمن ارحموا من في الأرض يرحمكم من في السماء. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that those who show mercy, they will be shown mercy by the most merciful. Be merciful to those who are in the earth, and the one who is above the heavens will show you mercy. وقال العلماء ذلك بأن العلم رحمة نتيجته رحمة في الدنيا وغايته رحمة في الآخرة. And that is, the ulama, they say this is because knowledge is mercy. The result of knowledge is mercy in this world, and the ultimate goal of knowledge is mercy in the hereafter. We continue going over the tremendous book by Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullahu ta'ala, Al-Arba'in al-Nawawiyya, the Al-Arba'in, the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi, Al-Arba'un al-Nawawiyya. We have come to the 8th hadith, actually. We have come to the 8th hadith, and that is the hadith an Ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: أمرت أن أقاتل الناس حتى يشهدوا أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله ويقيموا الصلاة ويؤتوا الزكاة فإذا فعلوا ذلك عصموا مني دماءهم وأموالهم إلا بحق الإسلام وحسابهم على الله تعالى. Hadith متفق عليه. This hadith has been agreed upon by both Al-Bukhari and Muslim. قال العلامة, the محدث المدينة, Sheikh Abdul Muhsin Al-Abbad حفظه الله تعالى, he mentions قوله, his statement, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, umirtu, that I have been commanded. نعم. الآمر للرسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم هو الله. The one who commands the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then verily it is Allah. Allah is the one who commands the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So we hear the likes of these statements, we hear the likes of these expressions, I have been commanded, in relation to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then we know that the one who has given him this command, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لأنه لا آمر له غيره, because there is no one who commands the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وإذا قال الصحابي, and if a companion says أمرنا بكذا, that we were commanded to do this, أو نهينا عن كذا, or we were prohibited from doing such and such, فالآمر والناهي لهم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, then the one who has commanded them and the one who has prohibited them from doing something, then it is the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The Shaykh Juyaanee says, and he goes on to mention, going over the rest of the hadith, an incident that had taken place after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, وَلَمَّا توفي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم واستخلف أبو بكر رضي الله تعالى عنه وارتد من ارتد من العرب. That once the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he had passed away, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq رضي الله تعالى عنه, he became the Khalifa, he became the leader of the Muslims. There were some individuals from amongst the Arab who had apostated. They had left Islam. وَامْتَنَعَ مَنْ امْتَنَعَ مَنْ دَفْعِ الزَّكَاةِ, and those who refused to pay the zakat, and there were those who refused to pay the zakat from those who refused to pay the zakat. عزم أبو بكر رضي الله تعالى عنه على قتالهم. Abu Bakr رضي الله تعالى عنه, he made his mind up that he was going to fight against these individuals. He made his mind up that he was going to fight against these individuals. بناء على أن من حق الشهادتين أداء الزكاة, because he was basing this on the fact that from the rights of the shahadatain, from the two testimonies of faith, then it is the paying of zakat, that is from the rights of the shahadatain. Now, reflecting back on the hadith of Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that I have been commanded to fight against the people until they testify that none has the right to be worshipped in truth except Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of Allah, and they establish the salah and they pay the zakat. If they do this, عَصَمُوا مِنِّي دِمَاءَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُم, then their blood and their money will be safe and protected from me, إِلَّا بِحَقِّ الْإِسْلَامِ, except for the right of Islam. وَحِسَابُهُمْ عَلَى اللَّهِ, and their reckoning will be upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Naam. This is the 8th hadith. Ma'adhira, I didn't translate it after saying it. Ala kulli hal, that's the translation right there. So there were those from the Arab who had left Islam. There were others who had decided that they were no longer going to pay the zakat. So Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he decided that the proper course of action against these individuals, then it was to fight against them until they paid the zakat. He made his mind up to take this course of action. كما في hadith, like it comes inside of the hadith, فناظره عمر رضي الله تعالى عنه في ذلك, as it comes in the hadith where Umar رضي الله تعالى عنه, he argued with Abu Bakr as related to this. He argued with Abu Bakr as related to his decision to fight against those who had decided that they were not going to pay the zakat. وجاء المناظرة بينهما في حديث أبي هريرة في صحيح مسلم, and there has come the narration which mentions their argument or their debate, as it comes in the hadith of Abi Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, as it comes inside of Saheeh Muslim, the collection of authentic hadith by Imam Muslim. قال, he said, توفي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم واستخلف أبو بكر بعده, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he passed away, and then Abu Bakr became the Khalifa after him. وكفر من كفر من العرب, and those who disbelieved from the Arab, they disbelieved. قال عمر بن الخطاب لأبي بكر, so Umar ibn Khattab, he said to Abu Bakr, كيف تقاتل الناس, how are you going to fight against the people? Meaning, he's inquiring about his justification in fighting against the people, whether or not this is the legitimate course of action. He said, how are you going to fight against the people? وَقَدْ قَالَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ, when the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, أُمِرْتُ أَنْ أُقَاتِلَ النَّاسَ حَتَّى يَقُولُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ فَمَنْ قَالَ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ فَقَدْ عَصَمَ عصم مني ماله ونفسه إلا بحقه. Now Umar, he had a narration from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where it is mentioned that I have been commanded to fight against the people until they testify that none has the right to be worshipped in truth except Allah, and that I am the messenger of Allah. If they do that, if they do that, then their blood, their money, and their blood will be safe from me, except for the right of Islam. وَحِسَابُهُمْ عَلَى اللَّهِ, and their reckoning will be upon Allah. Meaning that which is beyond the zahir, that which is beyond the apparent, then Allah Ta'ala will call them to account for the likes of those things. So he brought this as a proof and evidence to say that based upon this, I don't see any justification for fighting against them for not paying zakat. And this was a narration in which Umar, he had with him, from the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فقال أبو بكر, so Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, والله لأقاتلن من فرق بين الصلاة والزكاة. He said, by Allah, I will fight against those who have made a distinction between the salah and the zakat. I will fight against those who have made a distinction, made a separation between the salah and between the zakat. فَإِنَّ الزَّكَاةَ حَقُّ الْمَالِ, because zakat is the right of the money, is a right that is connected to money, a monetary right. وَاللَّهِ لَوْ مَنَعُونِي عِقَادًا كَانُوا يؤدونه إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لقاتلتهم على منعه. That by Allah, if they withhold an iqal, the iqal is the rope that they would tie the legs of the camel with when the camel was made to sit down, right? They would tie the legs of the camel with an iqal. Similar, it is the black, I don't know what you would call it, but the black head gear that is worn often over a shmag or a ghutra, as they wear in the Khalij. It goes like this, the black thing goes around. This is called iqal. This is called iqal. The Arab, they used to put the rope there so that it was easily accessed when it was time to get off the camel and to tie the legs of the camel, so as it stays in its place. Then they will put it on their head so they had easy access to it. Now, not so much the functionality of it anymore, but it is still worn. Ala kulli hal, the reason why, because obviously if you don't tie the legs of the camel, then the camel will run away. The camel will get up here and run away. So his legs had to be bound. Ala kulli hal. So he's saying, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that by Allah, if they withhold the iqal, this rope that the legs of the camel will be bound with, if they will withhold such that they used to give to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then I will fight against them because of their withholding of this. فقال عمر بن الخطاب, so Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, والله ما هو إلا أن رأيت الله عز وجل قد شرح صدر أبي بكر للقتال فعرفت أنه الحق. He said, by Allah, it is except that I saw that Allah Azza wa Jal had opened up the heart of Abu Bakr to fight against them, and thus I had realized that he was actually right, or thus I had realized that أنه الحق, that verily fighting against them was the right course of action. The fighting against them was the right course of action. Now, Sheikh Abdul Muhsin, he brings a very, very good point here, and there's a lot of benefits that we can learn from this point in which the Shaykh he mentions, and that is because Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he narrated a version of this hadith that did not mention the salat and the zakat. But it was said that whoever says La ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammad Rasulullah, then their blood and their money will be safe from me. Their money and themselves, they will be safe from me, except for the haqq of Islam. And their reckoning will be upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now there comes other narrations of this hadith, like the narration of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and others, that inshallah ta'ala will mention. على كل حال, قال الحافظ بن حجر, because remember now, this argument or this debate is taking place between Abu Bakr and between Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. And the one who is narrating this particular hadith is Ibn Umar, is the son of Umar. Naam, is the son of Umar. It's Abdullah ibn Umar. So it comes a question to a person's mind, okay, if Abdullah ibn Umar knew the hadith that had mentioned in it the salat and the zakat, then his father should have known it. And if his father would have known it, then he wouldn't have argued and debated with Abu Bakr, because in this hadith it becomes clear that those who make the shahada and they establish the prayer and pay the zakat, then if they do those aforementioned things, then their blood and their money is safe. Whereas anything shy of that, then there is a legal justification to fight against them if necessary. If necessary. Right? So that falls within the discretion of the leader in cases such as this, to fight against the people or to take that which is the right, to garnish it from their wages and the like. Okay? So Al-Hafidh Ibn Hajar, he mentions in Al-Fath, he says, وَقَدْ اسْتَبْعَدَ قَوْمٌ صِحَّتَهُ بأن الحديث لو كان عند ابن عمر لما ترك أباه ينازع أبا بكر في قتال مانع الزكاة. He said that some of the people, this aforementioned hadith, the 8 hadith from Arba'in Nawawiyya, that some of the people, they used to say that the authenticity of this hadith is a little far-fetched, because if Ibn Umar had it, if Umar's son had it, then why would he argue and debate with Abu Bakr as related to those who have decided that they were not going to pay the zakat? If Ibn Umar had this hadith, why would his father debate with Abu Bakr about this issue? Because in the hadith of Ibn Umar, it becomes very clear that this is a legal justification to take up arms and against individuals who deny or who refuse to pay the zakat. They say ولو كانوا يعرفونه لما كان أبو بكر يقر عمر على استدلال بقوله عليه الصلاة والسلام. He said, and if they both knew this hadith, if they both knew this narration, then Abu Bakr, he would not have agreed with Umar utilizing the wording in which he mentioned as a proof and evidence, but he would have objected and said, but no, the Prophet ﷺ, he also said and established the prayer and paid the zakat. But he didn't mention that. He didn't mention that when Umar brought that as a point, so as to support his argument that he did not see that as being the proper course of action. Now, as he mentioned, umirtu an uqatil an-nas hatta yaqulu la ilaha illallah, to the end of the hadith, that I've been commanded to fight the people until they say la ilaha illallah, to the end of the hadith. Like, وينتقل عن الاستدلال بهذا النص إلى القياس. He said, and the argument goes and it says, and he went, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, from this narration, he went away from using this narration and he went to qiyas. He went to using an analogy, intellectual deduction and analogy. This is what the argument is saying, right? So I want to make that clear. We're not saying this is what Abu Bakr did, but this is what the argument is saying. And then Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, he's going to answer this argument. على كل حال. He said, إذ قال, when he said, when he said, لَأُقَاتِلَنَّ مَنْ فَرَّقَ بَيْنَ الصَّلَاةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ. He said, I'm going to fight against those who have separated between the salah and the zakat. And I'm going to fight against them. لأنهما قرينة يعني نعم لأنها قرينتها في الكتاب الله, because verily it, meaning the zakat, always comes coupled, or comes often coupled with the salah in Allah's book. So whoever separates them, then I'm going to fight against them, because they come to get off mentioned together inside of the book of Allah. This is the argument in which they brought up and why they had doubt as relates to the authenticity of this narration from Ibn Umar. على كل حال, Imam Ibn Hajar, he says, Al-Jawab, the answer to this doubt, or the answer to this line of argumentation, the answer to this, أنه لا يلزم من كون الحديث المذكور عند ابن عمر أن يكون استحضره في تلك الحالة. He said, the fact of this hadith being with Ibn Umar, he knew this hadith, does not mean that in that particular situation it came to mind. It does not mean that in that particular situation it came to mind. Perhaps, yeah, it was with Ibn Umar, but perhaps it didn't come to mind. And how often is the case that in the heat of the moment there may be some pertinent information that needs to be mentioned, but it doesn't come to mind in the heat of the moment, right? But afterwards, then maybe a person will remember, oh, naam, and also this fact, naam. But in the heat of the moment itself, it doesn't come to mind. So they said this is a possibility that yes, it was with Ibn Umar, naam. In other words, this does not negate that, because naam, it was with him, but perhaps it didn't come to mind. It didn't come to Umar's mind when he was in the heat of the moment and having this discussion with Abu Bakr, but rather, he didn't remember, but he remembered the one in which he mentioned, which is not far-fetched. Why? Because we're talking about a serious situation here. We're talking about potentially, having to take up arms against a group for a particular action, and again, this is a serious matter. So due to that, perhaps it didn't come to mind at that point, and only the narration in which he mentioned came to his mind. That is one possibility as relates to that particular situation. Also another possibility, Imam Ibn Hajar, he mentions, he says, وَلَوْ كَانَ مُسْتَحْضِرًا لَهُ فَقَدْ يَحْتَمِلْ أَلَّا يَكُونَ حَضَرَ الْمُنَاظَرَةِ الْمَذْكُورَةِ. He said, and even if he remembered it, meaning that even if Ibn Umar remembered this particular narration as this debate was going in progress, then it is possible. What's another possibility? He wasn't there. That Ibn Umar wasn't there when they were having this debate. That he wasn't present for the discussion. So therefore he couldn't interject and remind with that in which he had with him. That's also another possibility. ولا يمتنع أن يكون ذكره لهما بعد. And it is also possible, meaning that it is also possible that he mentioned it to them afterwards. So just because they had that debate, then there is nothing saying or prohibiting the fact that perhaps he mentioned the narration to them afterwards. So just because Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu did not mention that particular narration in which his son narrated, then it could be because it didn't come to mind at the time, or it can be because if his son was there, that he, or it can be that his son wasn't there during that conversation. That his son wasn't there during that conversation. So one does not negate the other. The fact that Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu did not mention that particular narration does not change the fact of this is what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. That's one point which shows that rejecting this hadith purely on those basis, on that basis, and using this as a premise to reject this hadith is not enough. It's not enough. There are too many holes in that argument. And then also it was said inside of the argument that if that in fact was the case and they both knew of this hadith, then why did Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu go to using qiyas? go to using qiyas. He heard the narration and then he went to using just pure qiyas and analogy. Why is that the case? Imam Ibn Hajar, he mentions, he says, وَلَمْ يَسْتَدِلْ أَبُو بَكْرٍ رضي الله تعالى عنه في قتال مانع الزكاة بالقياس فقط. He said that Abu Bakr رضي الله تعالى عنه, he did not use an intellectual deduction and reasoning as his point or as a foundation for his argument to fight against those who had made up their minds that they were not going to pay the zakat. He did not use qiyas only. He did not use qiyas only, but rather بل أخذه أيضا من قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم في الحديث الذي رواه. But rather he used as a proof and evidence the very same hadith that Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu narrated. He used the same hadith. And that was the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, illa bihaqqihi, except due to its right, bihaqqil Islam, except due to the right of Islam, meaning those times in the deen where there's a justification to take a physical means and approach of correcting a situation. Where it is allowed to take force to correct the situation. That is there in the hadith. It says, إِلَّا بِحَقِّ الْإِسْلَامِ, except for the haqq in Islam, meaning except in Islam where it's justified in doing it. Shaif. But فقال Abu Bakr رضي الله تعالى عنه, he said, وَالزَّكَاء حَقُّ الْإِسْلَامِ, that zakat is the haqq of Islam, is a right in Islam. وَلَا ينفرد Ibn Umar رضي الله تعالى عنه بالحديث المذكور. Another point is that Ibn Umar wasn't the only one who narrated this hadith. So if a person comes and says, well, I have doubt in the hadith of Ibn Umar. Why? Because if he knew it, then his father should have knew it, right? And because if his father didn't know it, then the narration that he has, I have doubts in it. Well, Imam Hajar, he mentions, he says, Ibn Umar wasn't the only one who narrated this hadith, but rather you find this hadith has also been narrated by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu ayda biziyadat as-salat wa zakah fi, and he mentioned as-salat and zakah inside of that hadith as well. It also has been collected, it also been narrated by Anas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and also Anas radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he mentions some additional benefits as well. But inside of the hadith of Anas, we mentioned that one first because he brings the more detail, right? He mentioned some things that Abu Hurairah didn't mention and that are not mentioned here in the hadith of Ibn Umar. روى هذا الحديث أنس رضي الله تعالى عنه. نعم أمرت أن أقاتل الناس, I have been commanded to fight against the people. In the hadith of Anas it says حتى يشهدوا إن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله, until the people testify and bear witness that none has the right to be worshipped in truth except Allah, and that Muhammad is his slave and his messenger. Then he goes on to say, وَأَنْ يَسْتَقْبِلُوا قِبْلَتَنَا, and they face our qibla. They stand in the direction of prayer is the same as our direction of prayer. وَأَنْ يَأْكُلُوا ذَبِيحَتَنَا, and they eat from what we slaughter. وَأَنْ يُصَلُّوا صَلَاتَنَا, and they fast with our fast. And they pray with our prayer. وَأَنْ يُصَلُّوا صَلَاتَنَا, and they pray our prayer. So here we have mention of what? Of the salah. فَإِذَا فَعَلُوا ذَلِكَ حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْنَا دِمَاءَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ إِلَّا بِحَقِّهَا, and if they do this, then their blood and their money will be prohibited except by its right, meaning by the right of Islam. لَهُمْ مَا لِلْمُسْلِمِينَ, they will have the rights and be entitled to that which the Muslims are entitled to, and have the same, the rights of the Muslims. وَعَلَيْهِمْ مَا عَلَى الْمُسْلِمِينَ, and will be upon them that which is upon the general masses of the Muslims. This hadith has been collected by Al-Bukhari. And then it comes a hadith في صحيح Muslim from the hadith of Abu Hurairah that was aforementioned. And Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he mentioned, حَتَّى يَشْهَدُوا إِن لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, until they testify and witness that none has the right to worship in truth except Allah, وَيُؤْمِنُوا بِي وَبِمَا جِئْتُ بِهِ, and they believe in me and believe in that which I have come with. Now, they believe in me and they believe in that in which I have come with. And as aforementioned, there comes a hadith from Abu Hurairah where it is mentioned in it the salah and the zakat, that they pay the salah, that they pray the salah and pay the zakat. Right? So when you put all of these narrations together, then it becomes extremely clear that zakat is mentioned, that those who don't pay the zakat, then there comes a justification from the ruler to take a physical course of action as relates to correcting that situation. That if people say they're not going to pay the zakat and they're going to withhold from the poor people the right of the poor people, that is within the ruler's discretion, that he can fight against those people and garnish from their wealth, garnish their wages, garnish their wealth, take from their wealth, and then pay the people that which is, pay the poor people that which is owed to them from the rights or from the wealth of the rich people. So they would take from the wealth of the rich people the portion that has been allocated in the Sharia, in the Islamic legislation, that rightfully belongs to the poor people. Because this is the reality. That zakat, whatever percentage of zakat is in the wealth of the rich person, that they have to pay the zakat for that amount. Whatever that amount is, that amount does not belong to the rich person. That amount does not belong to the rich person, but rather it belongs to the poor people. It belongs to the poor people, and it's to be distributed to the poor people, to be distributed to those whom Allah Ta'ala, He has mentioned inside of the Quran that it be distributed to. It does not belong to that rich person, but it belongs to the poor people. So if the ruler has to physically and forcefully take the right of the poor people from the wealth of the rich people, it's within his discretion to do it. His money is not safe. Why? Because he is withholding. He has mixed in his wealth that which belongs to the poor. So therefore, the ruler can forcefully take that from him and give it to the poor people who it really belongs to, where it should rightfully be. And it shows you the justice in Islam. It shows you how in Islam everything is put in its proper place. It shows you in Islam how there's a social component to the deen, that individuals, it is not for them just to be stingy and then that's it, and it's their business and no one is going to tell them what. No, but rather the ruler, those who are in authority, they can forcefully take from that person's wealth to make sure the poor people are taken care of, because the poor, they have a tremendous right, and it is upon the ruler to make sure that the poor is taken care of. Period. Now, the Muslim, it is upon the Muslim to make sure that the poor is taken care of. If there's a situation where the Muslims are living in the lands where there are no rulers, those in authority over them that will come and garnish their wages, as a Muslim, as a believer, we have to have a concern for those who are poor. We have to have a concern for those who are poor, and we should be very diligent to making sure that whatever aspect of the money that does not belong to us, but rather belongs to the poor, we make sure the poor get what belongs unto them. We make sure that it comes out of our wealth at 2.5% and it reaches the poor. We make sure it reaches the poor because it's theirs. And we want to make sure that the poor are getting that which rightfully belongs unto them. So there are other, going back to the point, there are other companions who have mentioned and narrated this hadith that has mentioned in it and the paying of the zakat, that if the zakat is not paid, then this becomes a situation that the ruler could physically change that situation, physically take and whatever is needed to forcefully take the money from those from the rich people who don't want to give the charity to the poor people. But and Imam ibn Hajar, he mentions, he says, Bal رواه أبو هريرة أيضا بزيادة الصلاة والزكاة. That Abu Huraira يعني فيه, that Abu Huraira has a narration that it comes where he mentions the salah and the zakat in that particular narration. كما سيأتي كلام عليه إن شاء الله تعالى في كتاب الزكاة. He said, like, we'll speak about it when we come to the book of zakat, the book of charity, meaning inside of Sahih al-Bukhari. Now, so we're not going to come to that in this class. This is a quote from Fath al-Bari, the explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari, that when they come to that particular section, then he speaks about it. Naam, fi qissa, inside of the naam. But fi qissa dalilun, and he mentions inside of this story is a proof and evidence. Naam, ala anna sunnah qad تخفى على بعض الأكابر الصحابة, that there were certain aspects of the sunnah, some things, نعم, that perhaps escaped some of the major companions, that there were some aspects, نعم, some lessons that escaped them, that other companions heard the lesson, they were there for that particular lesson, they were there and they heard that from the Prophet ﷺ, but it was possible that perhaps Abu Bakr or Umar, they were not present at that time, that Uthman or Ali was not present at that time, and another Sahaba heard it. So they may have a narration that perhaps companions who were greater than them, more virtuous than them, more knowledgeable than them, did not have. Now, this is the reality. And we find that this is, as it has been throughout the course of time, is that what? Is that there have been certain scholars who knew certain narrations that other scholars didn't know. So some scholars, they will make a ruling based upon what they had with them from knowledge, and they tried their best to be right, but because they didn't have the narration, they didn't have enough information, so maybe they came with the wrong answer, a wrong conclusion. They still get rewarded for trying to be right. But there was another scholar who had the hadith. They had the hadith, so they went according to the hadith, and they didn't have to try to figure it out without the text, or without a text in that particular subject. So they were privy to a narration that another scholar was not privy to, and this happens. And there are many examples of this amongst the ulama, especially when one looks at the fiqh of the madhahib. You will find this. You will find this, that one scholar will base his opinion on a hadith that is clear, has reached him, and is authentic, and he'll base his opinion on that text, or his ruling, rather, I should say, not his opinion, his ruling on that text, and then thus he would rule with that. Another scholar, they either will not have the hadith, or the hadith reached them, but it reached them through a chain that was da'if, so they thought it was da'if, so they couldn't rely on it, so then they had to try to figure it out without that particular piece of evidence. And so on and so forth. So ala kulli hal, this is a proof and evidence that it is possible that some of the big of the Sahaba, they won't have a narration, but someone else will have the narration. وَيَطَّلِعُ عَلَيْهَا أَحَدُهُمْ, but another one will have that particular narration. وَلِهَذَا لَا يَلْتَفِتُ إِلَى الْآرَاءِ ولو قويت مع وجود السنة تخالفها. And it's a very important point. He said, and due to this, we pay no attention. We pay no attention to opinions, no matter how strong they are, no matter how well worded they are, no matter how convincing the argument seems, when there is a proof and an evidence that contradicts it. Now, when there's a proof and evidence that's saying something else. So as long as we have a proof and evidence, no matter how convincing the argument may seem, we throw that away and we go with what? We go with the proofs and the evidences. That makes sense? But then Imam al-Hajar, he mentions, he says, وَلَا يُقَالُ, and no one rightfully says, كيف خفي ذلك على فلان. It says, no one will say, well, how does so-and-so miss such and such? Because it's possible, he's a person. Maybe he wasn't there. Now, there's a lot of reasons a person could have missed something. So the fact that a person may have missed a narration, one of the great scholars or one of the Sahaba in this particular case, then this is clearly understood how that could be possible. And then the Shaykh, he says, Wallahu muwaffiq. And Allah Ta'ala, He's the one who gives tawfiq. That Allah Ta'ala, He's the one who gives tawfiq. Like, Abdul Muhsin, he mentions, he says, ويستثنى من عموم المقاتلة الناس حتى الإتيان بما ذكر في الحديث أهل الكتاب إذا دفعوا الجزية لدلالة القرآن وغيرهم إذا دفع لدلالة السنة على ذلك. نعم, he says, and what is excluded from this, meaning the justification of fighting against people until they bring those things that were mentioned inside of the hadith, what's excluded from that is the people of the book. The people of the book, if they pay jizya, if the people of the book pay the jizya, then they don't enter into the meaning of this hadith. They are excluded from it. But why? Because they pay the jizya, so therefore they don't have to bring the other things mentioned inside the hadith. Now, and other than them, as it has come, the proof and evidence for that inside of the sunnah. Now, the Shaykh, he says, وَيَكْفِي, and it's important to understand because a person may misunderstand from this hadith and think that a person will not become a Muslim until they do everything that was mentioned inside of the hadith. Now, that until you complete everything that was mentioned inside the hadith, then you're not a Muslim yet. The Shaykh, he deals with this point. He says, وَيَكْفِي لِدُخُولِ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ شَهَادَتان, and it is sufficient for a person to enter into Islam that they make shahada. نعم, وهما أول واجب على المكلف, and that is the first obligation upon those who are responsible. نعم. والالتفات لأقوال المتكلمين في الاعتماد على أمور الأخرى, and there is no attention or consideration or credence that is given to the people of rhetoric where they bring and they stipulate other things. They stipulate other things that are needed. For example, كالنظر أو القصد للنظر, like they stipulate that before a person could truly believe, this is from those who, people of rhetoric, they're saying before a person could truly believe, then a person has to, intellectually understand and challenge and, the text and so on and so forth. They have to intellectually go through it and go through this exercise, intellectual exercise of challenging and or, double questioning, so on and so forth. And then only once they have gone through that intellectual exercise, then they can truly believe. But until it is looked upon like that, then a person can't truly believe. That's not correct. Now, or at least having the intention to do it, because as some of them say that you have to either do it or have the intention to do it before you can enter into Islam, and that's completely false. That's completely false. نعم. وقال ابن دقيق العيد رحمه الله تعالى في شرح هذا الحديث. And Ibn Daqiq al-Aid, he mentions in the explanation of this particular hadith, وفيه دلالة لمذهب المحققين والجماهير من السلف والخلف. He said, and in this hadith there is a clear proof and evidence for that which the scholars, the great scholars who critique between the opinions, and the vast majority of the scholars from the Salaf and the Khalaf, أن الإنسان إذا اعتقد دين الإسلام اعتقادا جازما لا تردد فيه كفاه ذلك. That an individual, if he believes in the creed of Islam in a manner that is necessary, and he has no doubt as relates to it, he's not apprehensive as relates to it in any which way, shape, and form, no doubt, then that is enough for him. That is enough for him. ولا يجب عليه تعلم أدلة المتكلمين ومعرفة الله بها. He does not have to learn the principles and the proofs and that of these people of rhetoric. They don't have to go through this intellectual exercise that these individuals saying you have to go through and look at things like this and contemplate it like that and so on and so forth, and by way of their set principles, if you go through this exercise, then you can believe and you have to understand Allah by way of that, then no, there's no proof and evidences for anything that these people of rhetoric, these people of innovation are talking about. That everything that they bring and all these proofs, they're nothing, and Allah Ta'ala is not to be understood by way of them. Naam, it's not to be understood by way of them. But if a person, if they believe in the Shahadatan, if they believe in that none has the right to worship in truth except Allah, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is Allah's messenger, and thus they believe in all of the prophets and the messengers, naam, and they believe in the angels, they believe in the books, they believe in the day of judgment, believe in the qadr khairihi wa sharrih, so on and so forth, naam, and the like, then alhamdulillah, that's all a person needs to enter into al-Islam. That's it. They take the Shahada, they Muslim. Naam, take Shahada, Muslim. And this is a very important point as well. And this is from the tricks that the shaitan he brings to individuals when they are seeking to learn about Islam. And he makes them, some of them think you have to keep learning more, trying to delay them. And the reality of it is that you don't have to become a scholar and the deen before you accept the deen. No, you have to know that which is aforementioned, naam, and it's like, and then that is enough, and then that's all you need to know to accept Islam. As far as everything else, then it will come with time. It will come over time, naam, and the like. But as far as becoming a scholar in Islam and all the, nor knowing all the proofs and the evidences for everything and so on and so forth, this is not necessary in order for a person to enter into al-Islam. Now, I'm just like it's not necessary for a person to be a Muslim and to remain a Muslim, right? Meaning that they're able to recall all of these things at the drop of a dime. No, of course, we build our aqidah based upon the proofs and the evidences. But that does not mean that at any given point and period of time you have to be able to quote the ayah or the hadith for a particular point of creed, and if not, then you don't believe in it. No, it's not. No, but your belief has to be based upon the proofs and the evidences. Has to be based upon the proofs and evidences as understood by the Salaf of this ummah. Now, it has to be based upon it. It has to be in accordance to what the Prophet ﷺ came with. But as far as having to know it and bring it to mind and recall it and so on, no, not like that. Not like that. So it's said, it was understood that we the deen of Islam, with its proofs and its evidences, now, then this means that our aqidah, our actions, what we do, everything has to be based upon the proof and evidence. Doesn't mean that at the particular period of time, at any given period of time, you have to be able to quote the hadith. Otherwise, okay, that's it. No, you don't really believe. No. It's not to be understood like that. But عرفتم, that makes sense. واضح. طيب. نعم. وقال الشيخ والمقاتلة على منع الزكاة تكون لمن امتنع منها وقاتل عليها. أما إذا لم يقاتل فإنها تؤخذ منه قهرا. The Shaykh, he mentions, he says, as far as fighting those who don't pay the zakat, then is fighting those who deny and refuse to pay the zakat. So therefore, they can be fought against due to this. They can be fought against due to this. And it's also a situation where they don't necessarily have to be fought against due to this, but a situation where it is taken from them forcefully. Because you may not always have to fight against them to take the right from it. Because it may be a situation where the ruler has access to it now, and the like. So they have access to it. They don't necessarily have to fight them because of it. They can just take it. Now, but if it comes to a point where they have to actually fight them to get access to it in order to take it, then it's within their discretion to do so. Also, قوله, the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَحِسَابُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ, and his reckoning is with Allah. أن من أظهر الإسلام وأتى بشهادتين فإنه يعصم ماله ودمه. That whoever shows Islam, whoever makes it clear and apparent that they are a Muslim and they come with the shahada. They come with the shahada. They make it clear and apparent that they are Muslim. Then their blood and their money and their blood is safeguarded. Their blood and their money is safeguarded. فَإِنْ كَانَ صَادِقًا ظَاهِرًا وَبَاطِنًا. If they are truthful that they are Muslim externally and internally, نَفَعَهُ ذَلِكَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. Then he will benefit with that when he meets Allah Azza wa Jal. وَإِنْ كَانَ بَاطِنُ يعني خلاف ظاهر. But if his was on the inside is opposite than what's on the outside, وَكَانَ أَظْهَرُ ذَلِكَ نِفَاقًا. And they show Islam out of hypocrisy, meaning they really don't believe in Islam, but they're acting like they're Muslim and so on and so forth. فَهُوَ مِنْ أَهْلِ الدَّرْكِ الْأَسْفَلِ مِنَ النَّارِ. And he's from the people who are going to be in the lowest part of the hellfire. However, we accept from him what is apparent. As far as what is in an individual's heart, it is not our responsibility to know that. Now, we don't, because we can't know that. Only Allah Ta'ala knows the unseen. Allah Ta'ala, He knows what's in the hearts of the people. As far as us, we don't know what is in the hearts of the people, nor are we required to know what is in the hearts of the people. And this is something that is very important that it be understood, because how often is it the case that individuals will say, well, I think he's a Muslim, but you never really know. You got to be careful in saying statements like that. If the person shows us Islam, it's clear and apparent that they are Muslim, that's how we treat them. Their reality of what they really are is none of our concern. It's none of our concern. You show us you're a Muslim, we treat you like you're a Muslim. You die, we wash you, shroud you, pray over you, bury you in the Muslim graveyard. That's it. Why? Because you showed us that you was a Muslim. Now, what you're resurrected as on the day of judgment, none of our concern. It's not our business. Now, our business, we are commanded to interact based upon the zahir, to interact based upon what is apparent. So if a person shows us Islam, then they are Muslim. Khalas, that's it. Even if they're not Muslim in reality, we treat them like they are Muslim. Why? Because as far as we know, they are Muslim. Now, as far as we know, they are Muslim. Because all we know is what we see. All we know is what we hear. All we know what is apparent. That's all we know. We don't know what is hidden. We don't know what's in a person's heart. So we judge based upon our knowledge. And from our knowledge, person came with shahada. They pray with us in the masjid, so on and so forth. They're Muslim. That's it. That's how we treat them, like a Muslim. But as far as people throwing doubt and all this type of stuff, yeah, subhanallah. This is not correct. This is not right. And it's unfortunate, but you find it a lot. For whatever reason. Right? I won't get into people's reasons and all that type of stuff, but whatever reason. People sometimes, and I've had this happen to me. I've had people look at me and I'm dressed like this or similar to it. And they and you see them, and for whatever reason, you see the name, and whatever the case is, you recognize that's a Muslim, right? And you give them salams, assalamu alaikum. And I've had people actually have the audacity to look back at me and say, "Are you a Muslim? Are you serious? Are you kidding me? They would literally look back at me and say, "Are you Muslim?" Naam. Now, is there anything from that situation that reads like a non-Muslim? Allah musta'an. You understand? And I will respond to them in ways similar. Like, subhanallah, why would you ask me such a stupid question? Did it strike you or come across your mind that perhaps I'm not a Muslim? I'm dressed like this. I'm giving you salams. And you're going to ask me, am I a Muslim? But you see clearly on me the signs of Islam? Huh? Now, if I wanted to, because these individuals at times, and it's always crazy, the ones that would have the audacity to say this to me, this would be the person that has no physical and no visible signs of Islam. No beard, you understand? No prostration mark, like no clear signs of Islam, except I see a name tag and it say whatever the name is, and clearly that's a Muslim name, right? And so on and so forth. So, husnul dhan, you understand? Yeah, this is a Muslim. Now, someone told you this is a Muslim-owned store. You go inside, you see a person standing behind the counter. They got a Muslim name, so you give them salams. Then they got the nerve to look back at you and say, "Are you Muslim?" Yeah, subhanallah. And then when you come at them, when we respond to them in such a way, why we ask you such a stupid question? Do it look like I'm not a Muslim? Why would you ask me something stupid like that? then they start apologizing because they realize it starts to click. Oh, well, yeah, you're right. Subhanallah, Allah musta'an. One time I asked the person, I said, you know a kafir dressed like this? You seen a kafir before dressed like this? I'm sorry, brother. And he should have been sorry. Ala kulli hal, I let him have it. I played it off. But yeah, he should have been sorry. He should have been sorry for asking such a dumb question. But again, you got to avoid stuff like this. If you see a person is Muslim, that's how you treat them, then that's all that's on you. That's all that's on you. Now, it's not a point to look and see what's in his heart. A person says he's a Muslim, he could be a bad Muslim. But you don't say, well, I don't really know if he's really a Muslim. You can't say that. He could be a bad Muslim. He could have bad religion. He could be irreligious, but still Muslim. He could be a bad Muslim, criminal, but he's a Muslim. So it's not a point to look upon what's in his heart. If it becomes clear and apparent to you that the person is a Muslim, then that's how you treat them. You don't second guess and say, well, I don't know. It's not upon you to know. It's upon you to know what you know. And you know that he told you he's a Muslim. You know you saw him praying with you. You know he gave you salams and so on and so forth. And it's not over the time, but you can tell when a person know how to say salam and they don't know how to say salam. You understand what I'm saying? That it all pointing to the fact that, this is more than likely this is a Muslim. So you treat them as such. You treat them as such. Because the reality of it is that being wrong about the Islam of an individual is better for you than being wrong about an individual being a kafir. So if they show you they're Muslim, they're Muslim. Don't have this, well, I really don't know. Don't have that feeling or that sentiment, because it's not upon you. It's only upon you to go upon that which is apparent. Now, it's very clear. So if a person, you see from them Islam, alhamdulillah. If they truthful on the inside, alhamdulillah, it's going to benefit them. If they not truthful on the inside, they're going to be in the lowest parts of the hellfire. Now, it's not upon you. And that's why, وَحِسَابُهُمْ عَلَى اللَّهِ, and their reckoning is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the Shaykh, ta'ala, he ends by bringing some points of benefit that I mentioned in the hadith, and we'll go through them quickly, inshallah ta'ala. The first one is that the order of fighting against the people, إلى الحصول الشهادتين والصلاة والزكاة, that commanded to fight against the people until they come with the shahada, the salah, and the zakat. Meaning that until they come with that, then it's justified to fight against them. There's a justification to fight against them if the ruler deems that to be the appropriate course of action. But again, the likes of those things are in the hands of the rulers, not in the hands of me and you. Not in the hands of me and you, but in the hands of the rulers. The ruler decides he wants to have a military conflict and the like, then that's their discretion. If they decide they want to take up physical arms against the individuals because of the reasons that are justified to them in the Sharia, then that is their prerogative, that is their call. It's not our call to declare war on anyone. And that's very important, and it needs to be known. Second point of benefit is that you can generally refer to statements as actions. You can generally refer to statements as actions. And the Shaykh extracts from this, from some of the narrations of the hadith, that the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا فَعَلُوا ذَلِكَ, that if they do this, وَمِمَّا ذُكِرَ قَبْلَهُ شَهَادَتَانِ, and from that which was mentioned before that was the shahada. وَهُمَا قَوْلٌ, and both of them, they are a statement. Right? So the shahada was mentioned, and then it was said, فَإِذَا فَعَلُوا ذَلِكَ, and if they do that action. So that points us to the fact that sometimes you can generally refer to statements as actions. Like, third point of benefit is that an individual, or is that there is an affirmation that individuals, they will be judged and they will be rewarded and or punished for their actions on the day of judgment. وَحِسَابُهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ, and their reckoning will be with Allah Ta'ala, which means that there will be a reckoning for our deeds on the day of judgment. That we will either be punished or we will be rewarded for what we have done here in this life. Fourthly, is that those who deny and refuse to pay the zakat, then they could be fought. They could be fought due to their denying of it until they end up paying it. So in other words, that if it was justified to physically correct the situation, then that situation will be physically corrected until they comply and they pay it. Once they pay it, then there's no more justification to take up physical means against them due to this reason. Naam, that once they pay it, that's it. Now you got to stop. Fifthly, is that whoever shows Islam is accepted from him. Whoever shows Islam is accepted from him. A person will come and shows Islam, and then we say, well, you really a Muslim? Let me see. You know about this? You know about that? I don't know. You do this? You do it? No. They show you Islam, it's accepted from them. Naam. And as far as what is in his heart, we refer that unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And like this is the believer, we refer things to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as far as are there hypocrites amongst the Muslims nowadays? Yes, of course there's hypocrites amongst the Muslims nowadays. Naam. What's a hypocrite? Those who act like they're Muslim, but they're not really a Muslim. They really don't believe in Islam in their heart. Do they exist amongst the Muslims? Yes, they existed amongst the Muslims nowadays like they existed amongst the Muslims in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But rather, probably more so right now. However, the believer's not worried about that. Not worried about that. That's between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah ta'ala, he would deal with them. We're not worried about that. It's not our job to try to now be the deen police and investigate who's this and who's not. Who's Muslim, who's not Muslim. That's not our responsibility. Those who have fallen to clear kufr, ridda, apostasy, so on and so forth, and ulama, they will point out the likes of these things, and the Islamic courts are there, and the judges, they will deal with those individuals who do that. It's not on us. So for the everyday Muslim, that's not us. That's not on us. We don't worry about that type of stuff. Now, nor do we become over concerned and worry about that type of stuff. Do we become like conspiracy theorists and just everything is whatever, paranoid type of stuff. Perhaps there's some people in the masjid that's up to some nefarious things. If so what? So what? We Ahlul Sunnah. Ahlul Sunnah, our da'wah is clear. You understand? What we say in open, publicly, what we say privately, what we say behind closed doors is what we say in front of the world. So you want to come to the masjid, you want to spy, you want to send your agents in there, so on and so forth. Ahlan wa sahlan, send them. Welcome. Come on. Learn about Islam. Learn about Sunnah. Learn about Salafiyah. We're not scared. We don't care if you come. Come, learn. Learn what is really Islam. Inshallah ta'ala, accept Islam. Inshallah ta'ala, accept Islam. But we ain't got nothing to hide. We have nothing to hide. You understand? We have nothing to hide. I mean, look, if we have something to hide, if there was something to be hidden, would I be doing this class publicly right now? Right? If there was something to be hidden, would I be doing this particular class publicly right now? No, come on, man. Our da'wah is open book. We have nothing to hide. We're not scared. You understand? So let them be there. Who cares? They can learn about Islam. That's our take on it. You understand? And if not, then that's their loss. When they meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they'll see how that was a bad decision for them. So we don't care. Yeah. Sixth point is that what? Is that there is talazum bayna shahadatain. Then there is a must for the shahadatain, and meaning they come together, they cannot be separated. Naam. Wa annahu la bud minhuma ma'an, is that you have to have them both together. There has to be the shahadatain, both of them there together. So when a person understands this point and this reality, there removes any doubt from them as relates to whether or not a Jew or a Christian is a Muslim. It removes all doubt. Shahadatan. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. That I testify and bear witness that none has a right to worship in truth except Allah. What's the other one? And I testify and bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Like, if you bring a Jew and the Jew is telling you, I don't believe in Isa, I don't believe in Muhammad, how are you going to be Muslim? Kaif. You don't believe in Muhammad. So even if, quote unquote, we're going to say for argument, even if they believe in La ilaha illallah, because they don't believe in Muhammad Rasulullah, they cannot be a Muslim. Right? So now what about a person that don't believe in Isa and they don't believe in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How are they Muslim? How? Kaif. How's that possible? Okay. The Christian, ala sabili mithal. Now, for this, for example, just for the argument, like if they say that they believe in La ilaha illallah, okay, like the Unitarians and whoever else make that claim, are they Muslim? No. Why? Because they don't believe in Muhammad Rasulullah. So how are they going to be a believer? Person come and say, but they believe. How you believe you're not a Muslim? Like let's address this. How are you a believer if you're not a Muslim? So no, they're not a believer. Why? Because they don't believe in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So how you believe? You believe in what? You don't believe in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You don't believe in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They don't believe in Isa. If you don't believe in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and you claiming you're a Christian, you don't believe in Isa, the prophet that you claim you believe in. You don't believe in Isa because Isa alayhi salam, he told you about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and that he was going to come. Right. So if you disbelieve in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then you disbelieve in Isa alayhi salam. Well, that makes sense. So if you don't believe in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you cannot be a Muslim. Just like a person coming to say, I believe in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but I don't believe in Tawheed. I don't believe in monotheism. I think you can pray to multitudes of things, and that's okay. But I believe Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the messenger. I believe when he came with, but I believe you can pray to Buddha, you can pray to Hindu, whoever, whatever, the Hindu gods and that, and whoever else. I believe you can pray to all that, and that's fine too. They are Muslim? No. Why? Because they don't believe in La ilaha illallah. So they come together. So anyone who does not believe in La ilaha illallah, they do not believe in Muhammad Rasulullah, they are not a believer because they're not a Muslim. No, they're not a believer. No way. Okay, that makes sense. This hadith should make that abundantly clear. But lastly, the Shaykh he mentions is that this hadith, it highlights and it illustrates the tremendous status of the salah and of the zakat in Islam. Now, the tremendous status of the salah and of the zakat in Islam, of prayer and of charity in Islam. Now, and that the salah is the right of the body. The salah is a right, a physical right that the body does, and the zakat is a right of the wealth. The zakat is a monetary right, is a right that is related to wealth. Now, but what highlights and why the Shaykh said it highlights their tremendous status is that out of all of the deeds in Islam, these two were mentioned here in this hadith. These two were mentioned here in this hadith, which shows their great status. Now, and again, there's a lot more that could be said about this particular hadith, as other ulama, they have mentioned other points inside of other explanations of this particular hadith. So I encourage people to go back and to read from those other explanations by Al-Allama Imam Al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala. Those who have access to read through the explanation of this hadith by the Fadilatul Sheikh Salih Al-Fawzan, that I encourage them. Those who can go back and read the explanation of this hadith by Al-Allama Fadilatul Sheikh Salih Abdul Aziz Al Sheikh Hafidhullah Ta'ala, then I advise them to go back and to read from those explanations. And other than that, inshallah ta'ala, from the ulama that explain this particular hadith, to get a better understanding and to go over the points in which were not mentioned here in this particular class. However, then the Shaykh, he goes on to mention the 9th hadith. فنكتفي بهذا القدر وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وجزاكم الله خيرا.